This episode contains specific and graphic information about a crime. Please be advised.
6 people were shot, stabbed, bludgeoned to death. Gasoline was poured all over their body. The house was burned down. There was a crime that never happened in a small town like this. Young man thought he had seen 4 young black men in a Jeep. He thought one of those young black men in the Jeep was me. And then they knocked on my door the next morning and changed my whole life. So I ended up going to jail for crime I knew absolutely nothing about. Texas Ranger walks up to my face, and the words he said to me verbatim was, "I don't believe you did this crime." At the end of the day, they knew I was innocent, but I was a young African-American man who could not afford that type of justice. This is a thought that came to my mind that saved my life. And it was simple. Man, I'm just going to live till I die. That's it. That saved my life.
Welcome to True Crime Prevention, the podcast that melds true crime with real solutions. Let's expose how all crime starts the same way, with a chance. Today we won't give it a chance. I'm Paul DelPonte, and I work with McGruff the Crime Dog. Thank you for joining us. Today you are in for a real story full of drama that no movie, no TV script could do justice about the wrongfully accused. You're going to see what that's like to be on death row, to hear from Anthony Graves and his famous story in Texas on what it's like to face your execution date, not once, but twice. But more importantly, how his spirit was not broken and how he's helping others. Stay tuned for this absolutely gripping story of how the criminal justice system got it so wrong and what this heroic man is doing to make sure it doesn't happen to others. In the meantime, don't forget to click like and subscribe, and we'll be right back with Anthony. Anthony, thank you for joining True Crime Prevention. Great to have you with us.
Thank you guys for inviting me on.
And great to see you living as a free man again. So it has been quite an ordeal, to say the least. Basically, at the time, the criminal justice system took away about half your life because you were wrongfully convicted of murder. Is that right?
That is definitely correct.
There we go. So tell us, this goes back, I guess, 1994 or around that time. How old were you then?
So it actually was 1992 when the crime had taken place, and I was 26 years old, a week shy of my 27th birthday.
And you were just living your life, minding your own business. Is that?
Yeah. I wasn't no criminal or anything. I was just minding my own business. And then, someone called my name and said that I was involved in something with them, thinking that they could get away. But once they called my name, my whole life changed.
And so when you say called your name, this was, so actually the real killer accused you, is that essentially?
Well, that's who they executed, so we'll call him the real killer. I don't know if he did it.
We don't know for sure. Okay.
But he...
And this is in Texas, which is a capital punishment state.
Yes. This was in Texas. Matter of fact, a small town called Somerville, Texas. About 2,000 people that resided there. And nothing like this had ever happened in that small town. So when this did happen and a young man showed up to the funeral with bandages, he became immediately a person of interest to the Texas Rangers who were there at the funeral. So afterwards, they approached him and asked if they could talk to him. He agreed.
So it was a murder case. It was a brutal murder, right?
6 people were shot, stabbed, bludgeoned to death. Gasoline was poured all over their body. The house was burned down, in an obvious attempt to cover up the crime. So it was a crime that never happened in a small town like this. I was in an adjacent town, Brenham, which is like about 25 miles from Somerville, Texas.
And then you said your name got at first implicated. I'm assuming at some point the Texas Rangers or the police showed up knocking on your door. Tell us how that part unfolded.
Yeah, so my name got called. A young man thought he had seen 4 young black men in a Jeep coming off the freeway onto the feeder. He thought one of those young black men in the Jeep was me. So when they took him to the DPS office and they started interrogating him, they asked him to give the name of someone who could have done the crime with him, and they would let him go. Well, because he thought he had seen me earlier in the Jeep, he called my name. They asked him for a story. They gave him like 7 different stories. Then afterwards, when the story fitted their theory, they turned around and charged him with capital murder. And then they knocked on my door the next morning and changed my whole life.
How open were they when they knocked on your door? What, is it like, hey, there was a murder, you're accused?
Well, it was actually my neighbor who had knocked on my door, and I opened it. He told me, hey, man, the police looking for you. And I said, police looking for me? For what? Because I want to know, why would the police be looking for me? He said, I don't know, man, but they just asked me if that was your vehicle. So in my mind, if the police looking for me, then they have gone by my auntie's house because I go there every day. So I called my auntie to ask her, hey, Mike just told me the police was looking for me. Have they come by the house? And she was like, no, why would the police be looking for you? I said, I don't know, but Mike just said they're looking for me. So she said, well, why don't you call the police station and find out? So I said, well, okay, well, better yet, I'll just put my shirt on and I'll go outside and I'll look for the police, right? This is what part of my story where I tell all your viewers and listeners who are listening to me right now that at the end of the day, no matter what you take away from my story, just remember this one thing because it could definitely save you and your family life. Don't go look for the police. Let them find you. Okay? Because I went looking for the police because I wanted to know. When I went downstairs, the police pulled up. He gets out the police cruiser, asked me my name. I tell him. He asked me for some ID. I show it to him. Then he tell me that he'd been told to come pick me up to take me to the police station because some officer wanted to talk to me. So I asked him, could you tell me what it's about? He said, no, but when you get down there, the officer will let you know. So I tell the next door neighbor, hey, Mike, the officer said I have to go to the police station for something, but my mother's on the way home. Could you let her know? I should be right back, right? Because I haven't done anything wrong. So in my mind, maybe I got a ticket or something that I forgot. I don't know. So when I told him, hey, tell my mom I should be right back, I did not realize it was going to take me over 6,640 days of my life, along with 2 execution dates and witnessing over 400 men being murdered around me before I was able to come back home a free man. Right? Because when I get down to the police station, they're telling me that some man has implicated me in a crime that I know absolutely nothing about. At the end of the day, they knew I was innocent. But I was a young African-American man who could not afford that type of justice. And I ended up getting a death penalty for a crime I knew absolutely nothing about.
Okay, so you're at the police station. At what point did they go from questioning you to reading you your rights?
No, when they asked me to stand up, they began reading me my rights. Yeah,
Okay.
they in their mind, they already got the person. Now let's start building the case.
What kinds of questions did they start asking right off the bat?
Once they brought me and accused me and charged me with the crime, they just started interrogating me, man, and asking me about the crime that I couldn't answer. And then, at the end of the day, the Texas Ranger walks up to my face. He looks at me, and the words he said to me verbatim was, I don't believe you did this crime. But if you don't put nothing on Mr. Carter, we're going to put this whole thing on you. And if you're actually innocent, then don't let no grass grow on your grave. And he told the officer, now get him out of here. So I ended up going to jail, spending 2.5 years for crime I knew absolutely nothing about. Waiting trial.
Wow.
Begging them to take me to trial for 2.5 years. I'm begging them to take me to trial because I want to go home.
Wow. Okay, 2.5 years. The prosecutor had to present a case, and it boggles my mind, and I'm sure it boggled your mind even more, wondering how could they present evidence to convict someone of not one, but multiple murders.
Wow, yeah.
Help us unfold that, because I'm having a hard time getting my mind around it.
It's still a mystery, man. How do you sentence a man to death with no evidence? Well, I'll tell you how. When you got 12 people up in the jury, 11 of them are white and one of them is a black man, that's how. Because when we picked the jury, it was 11 white jurors and 1 black. And my attorney said to me, well, I'm going to go see who the foreman of the jury is. And I just blurted out to him, man, it's going to be the black guy. And he said, why you think that? I said, man, it's going to be the black guy. So he goes back into the jury room and he comes back out and he says, how did you know that was going to be the black guy? And see, you can answer the question now without me even having to tell you, but I'm going to fill it in. And I said, man, because they're going to convict me before they even hear this case. And they're going to put the black man as the face of the jury.
Okay.
And he don't realize that his vote cannot be the only vote for me because they're going to look like he's voting for the black guy. So he's 1 vote against me already. They're going to do the black guy. So that's what they did. They put the black guy front as the foreman of the jury, and they convict me before they heard the case, and they let the black guy hand the judge the note saying that I was convicted of capital murder, man, with no evidence at all.
Nothing but a lie.
Man who did not know me was able to lie on me. It caused me 18.5 years of my life, most of it on death row. He did not know me.
Okay, so the jury came back with a guilty verdict based on the testimony of 1 individually, and no bullets, no forensic evidence, no nothing.
Nothing, man. No nothing.
So you're sitting there, and we've all watched enough movies to know how this goes. Please rise. The jury has reached its verdict, and you're standing there. And you hear this guilty, guilty, guilty 12 times. I can't even imagine. So I got to ask, what was going through your mind? Because I can't imagine it.
I was exhausted, man. For 2.5 years, I believed that all I had to do was get to trial and let the truth come out, and I can go home. So for 2.5 years, I was geared up to make sure that the truth came out so I could go home. I don't know nothing about this. I don't know the people. People don't know me. I know nothing. And now, 2.5 years, I'm finally going to get a trial. But let me just tell you, my grandma used to say to me, be careful what you ask for in this world because you just might get it. I wanted a trial. I wanted to prove my innocence, which that is not the law. The law is that you're innocent until proven guilty. But I needed to prove my innocence because I wanted to go home, man. I've been in jail 2.5 years for a crime I know absolutely nothing about. I'm not a criminal. But yeah, here it is. I'm faced with capital murder and I'm in trial for it. And I don't know nobody. I'm 27 years old. Now I'm 29 by the time we go to trial. And all I want to do is just tell the truth so I can go home.
Right.
But that's not the way our criminal justice system works. If they're taking you into the courtroom, they're going in there to convict you, not to seek justice, not to seek the truth, but to seek a conviction. And your other side is trying to win as well. And the pawn in it all is the guy in the cheap seat. That was me. Everybody's playing to win. I just want the truth to come out so I can go home. But that's not the way it's done in our courtroom. And that's why I've dedicated my life to sharing my story so people can understand. This is not TV. This is not made for TV. This is real life. People are losing their freedoms in their life to our criminal justice system because of the fear that they have sold us to that we now support it blindly. And they're able to take people like me and mess up our lives when I've done nothing. So I've written my book about it. I've shared it. I go across the country and I share my story about it because it's important for people to know this is what's happening in our criminal justice system.
Absolutely is. I just got to commend you both on writing the book, doing all the speaking that you're doing. And you pointed out to me before we began the show, this is what you do now.
Yes, sir.
And because you got to do it. Let's go back. So there you are, convicted. Then you get taken away from jail to a real prison. I'm sure that wasn't pretty. You're on death row, right?
It was totally mind blowing. Here it is. I'm at home with my family one night. A crime happened in another town that I don't go to, don't know the people don't know me, and now I'm on death row for it. Amongst the people that we have claimed to be the worst of the worst in our society.
Right.
And now I'm having to live among them.
We live with them.
It was scary, man.
I bet.
Scary. I remember the first week I was there. I didn't talk to nobody. I didn't want nobody to talk to me. They gave me some headphones that I could put on and listen to some music, right? Listen to the TV that was out on the run. It wasn't in your cell. You could see it out on the run with some headphones every day. I would put them headphones on and I would relive from minute to minute my life in the free world. I did not want to be on death row. I did not deserve to be on death row. I hadn't committed no crime. I'm not no criminal, but I'm sitting here on death row and I got headphones on trying to imagine myself in the free world among my family, among my peers, among the people that love me. And they took that from me for 6,640 days of my life. They took that from me with no evidence and then tried to murder me, man.
So yet through all this, you persevered.
Yes.
And to me, that's probably the most amazing part of the story. They didn't break you. And that's to your credit. That's because of who you are. Your truth eventually came out, but it wasn't quick. You were almost executed, not once, but twice.
Correct.
You know you didn't do it. It sounded like even the officer the Texas Ranger who interrogated you knew you didn't do it. There were people who knew you didn't do it. And I assume the prison guards and the wardens, they're treating you like any other prisoner. As you said, the worst amongst us. This is not some prison where they sent Martha Stewart. This is the real deal. How did momentum start going to say, hey, we think we got the wrong guy here? How did that start? It wasn't quick, that's for sure.
No, it wasn't quick, right? It took a lot of effort, right? Anybody that would write to me, I don't care if it was a 6-year-old kid writing in crayon, I would respond and ask them, could you ask your mom and your dad to help me save my life? I wrote so many letters to so many people asking them to please help me save my life. That people start learning my story. I'm talking about from New York to Germany to Switzerland to Sweden to Norway to Italy. All these people started coming together after they learned my story. And we created an organization called Join Hands for Justice. I created Sitting on Death Row over in France. And from France, it took off across the country. And from over there, they started talking about my case and it got to the shores of America. And when I was right in the backyard already, But once it got over here, a independent investigator came down to interview me. And after she interviewed me, she was so shocked about my story. She went to the Innocent Project and said, I think y'all need to investigate this case. So the Innocent Project was holding a symposium. And this lady, she was a journalist professor, and her students, they were there at this death penalty symposium. And they were talking about my case. And they were talking about my case being on a fast track to execution, had never really been investigated, and wanted to know who would be willing to just investigate the case, just to look into it. And the journalist professor and her students were there. She said she looked around, nobody raised their hand. She looked at her students, and they looked at her, and they all raised their hand together, which was like a blessing for me. Because for the next 8 to 10 years, this lady and her students overturned every rock that proved my innocence. And that's how it became knowledgeable in America that this innocent man was on Texas death row.
So that is quite a story. You go from prison in Texas to momentum in France, back to the US, to a group of journalist students, and then it takes a life of its own. So you were in prison for how long before this started happening? About 2 years then?
I was in prison for about 8 years before this journalist came into my life. 8 to 10 years I was already there.
8 to 10 years, and you were thinking, oh my God, I'm going to get put to death for something I didn't do this whole time, I'd imagine.
Wow, yeah. I mean, you definitely think about your own mortality down there, because every other day someone is getting executed that you know. Sometimes twice a day we're executing people, right? So over 403 men around me that I got to know down there that was executed by the state of Texas. So, of course, you're going to think about your own mortality. I remember the first time they gave me an execution date, and they took me down to the office, and they set me in the chair to tell me that the state had called, and they had set me an execution date, and they was going to kill me. It was around my son's birthday, and they wanted me to know what I wanted them to do with my body, what I wanted my last meal to be. But I tell you this, that day changed my whole life again. And that day was when I started living on death row. After that, they told me that was a thought that came in my mind that just saved my whole life, my sanity and everything, and allowed me to start living on death row through all of that. And the thought was this, and I'll share this with your viewers.
Please do.
I ask your viewers, sometime when you're in a situation where you feel that there's no hope, or that you feel that you need to give up, or that everybody else is in control of the situation, this is the thought that came to my mind that saved my life. And it was simple. Man, I'm just going to live till I die. It's nothing nobody can do about that. I'm just going to live till I die. That's it.
Well, sometimes the simplest things make most sense.
Yes, sir. That saved my life. To know that I had the power and I had the choice to continue to live until I die, regardless of what anyone was planning for my life. I can live till I die. That's powerful for me.
You proved the people who were wrong through that power. It is amazing to me, and I think to our listeners and viewers, that your spirit, your mindset is what saved you. So you've got this group of journalists on the outside in your corner pulling for you. And you're on the inside on death row. So I assume that means very little freedom.
Very little.
Even within a situation where there is no freedom, you have even less than most. Right? And what was the treatment like?
It was inhumane. Like I said, I was in a cage, a 6x9 cage, 23 hours a day. Right, wow. 1 hour I can come out and walk around in a bigger cage. They call it recreation, and that was it. You could shower 3 times a week. On the weekends, you're just locked in there from Friday till Monday morning, 24 hours a day. Right? I can take my hands, open up my arms, and basically touch the walls. And I take 3 steps forward, I'm at the front door. I take 3 steps backwards, I'm at the back of my cage. Right. So, and the rules are really there to dehumanize you, to treat you less than. And so I would see a lot of men lose their minds, going crazy, dropping their pills, hanging themselves in their cells. These are things you don't really hear about in the public because they don't want you to know, but right. That's what's going on down there regularly. Guys are just, the conditions are driving men insane, right? And they haven't even gone through their appeal process yet.
So you're persevering through all this. You've got this thought, live each day, live my life. Something must have motivated you to persevere, to not take your own life, to not give up. what, I'm just fascinated that
Well, yeah,
you are where you are today because of you, and I want
yeah.
to hear more.
Well, let me take you back then to I was in jail for like 3 weeks, right? And one of the things about believing in God, and I'll take you to this. When we learn to believe in God, usually it's because our parents had told us when we were little kids, and we start believing in God because that's what we learned from our parents. We go to church, sing in the choir, all that. But at the end of the day, we really don't have a personal relationship with Him when we start believing in Him. We believe in Him for other reasons. Like I say, our parents, we were taught, whatever, but there's no real personal relationship there. Right. So when I was arrested and I had been in jail 3 weeks, and I've been reading my Bible. I'm doing all the right thing. I'm praying because I'm innocent and I shouldn't be here. Well, after about 3 weeks, an officer come to the cell, and I'm standing up at the cell, and he said, "Graves," and he handed me some papers. Well, it was indictment papers for capital murder, right? So I had just been reading the Bible. And so after I got those papers, I was so upset that I looked around on my bunk and I seen the Bible was still there. Well, I was so upset I went and got the Bible and threw it in the corner. I didn't want to read that Bible. I didn't want to have nothing to do with that because here it is. I'm innocent. I'm praying. I'm doing all the things that my parents told me I should be doing. And yet I just got some indictment papers, right? So by 3 o'clock that morning, I could not sleep, but that Bible was still over there in that corner. It's just something in my head said, man, go pick that Bible up. I got off my bunk and I just went to pick it up just because, right? I couldn't sleep. So I picked the Bible up. And if you look at my book, read my book, and when I open up my Bible,
And
and
let's give our listeners the name of the book.
my book is called Infinite Hope by
Okay.
Anthony Grace. I had 12 years of solitary confinement, failed to kill my soul.
And it's
But
a must read.
when I open up the Bible, to paraphrase what it said to me, it said, "I will not put no more on you than you can bear." That was the message. I will not put no more on you than you can bear. At that point, my whole life started to change. I started now paying attention to why me? Why am I here? What's going on around me? And then I was convicted and I was sentenced to death. And so now I'm on death row and I get execution dates and I'm seeing so many people being murdered around me. So I find myself going to sleep at night crying. I don't even care to be here no more. Okay. It's not that I'm guilty. I'm an innocent man. But what I'm witnessing, all this inhumanity around me, it just takes your spirit. And I don't even care to be here no more. But I lay down and I'm crying. Tears rolling down my face. But then I wake up and I'm ready to fight again. Renewed energy, renewed strength. Where did that come from? I didn't understand what was going on. I started really paying attention. Then I started talking to my God. Just they call it prayer, but I was just talking because I needed somebody to listen to me. Who better to talk to than the person that I said I believed in? And I would say to him, "Jesus, if you real, I need you now. I need you more now than ever because I can't do this. As a man, I can't do this. This is hard. I'm witnessing so much inhumanity." But I noticed that every morning I still had the strength to fight for my life. And so I started saying, you know what, Anthony? Pay attention to what's ahead of you, not what's behind you. Because people behind you are trying to catch up and kill you for something you didn't do. But there's a light in front of you that if you pay attention to that light, you can get to where you're going. And it's called freedom. And I knew that light was God because that light started shining bright in front of me. And I started paying attention to it. I just needed to get to that light. Just pay attention, Anthony. Don't worry about what's going on behind you because you can't control that. Just pay attention to where you're trying to go. That's when I understood how real God was in my life. That's when I understood that I had a relationship with the person that I said that I really believed in but never showed up. Now he's showing up for me because I know I'm not doing this by myself. I can't do it. I want to
Wow.
give up, but something
Well,
will not let me give up.
you're talking to someone who was steeped in Catholic school, Catholic college. In just a couple minutes, you synthesized and made very crystal clear the true meaning of faith better than I can recall any priest or any philosopher saying, because it was real and it was right in front of
It
you.
was my life. It was right in front of me, man.
So
Sink or
you've got this group of journalists who are trying to do the right thing. And I didn't live what you lived through and hope pray to God I never do, or anybody I know does. But I know enough about the system and systems in general. When the system thinks they've got something right and they put the wheels in motion where they were headed to take your life, it's not easy to stop those wheels and reverse them. So you've got this uphill battle. How did they and you start making enough noise that you were able to get those gears stopped?
Well, it was just, it was a build-up. The professor, the journalist professor, her name is Nicole Caceres, and I want to put a name there because this is a lady
Please
that
do.
saved my life, right? Her and her students, but it was mostly her. She was an attorney. She turned into a journalist professor. Then she went back and got her license as an attorney and became part of my team. And she turned over every rock. And she talked to everybody. She did news press conference. She went to symposiums. Went to innocent clinics. She did anything and everything she could because she knew she was representing now an innocent man. And so it just started picking up from there, man. And then I started having hearings, and the other attorneys joined on my case. And then the court started acknowledging that this man is innocent, And eventually they passed a ruling claiming my innocence, citing egregious prosecutorial misconduct. That was
Okay.
the only reason that I was in jail on death row now, because of egregious prosecutorial misconduct. And that's because she was able to show them all the evidence that proved my innocence and that proved that they manipulated, they lied, they cheated, they threatened witnesses, they did everything to secure a conviction of an innocent man. And she was able to prove that over time.
Now, that last part, you make it sound straightforward and simple, but I'm sure it wasn't. How long are we talking here?
At that time, we're talking 10 years.
10 years. Okay.
10 years to
So 10
execution.
years, you know you're innocent.
Yes.
Now you have her,
Yes.
and bless her, who knows you're innocent. And slowly, more and more people are saying, hey, this guy's innocent. So
Yes.
10 years of that, though. And
Yeah.
you're not looking in the rearview mirror. You're looking straight at the windshield going forward.
Man, my mind at this point is this here. You're going to kill me or you're going to free me. There's not going to be a compromise.
Wow.
Because they had been trying to get me to compromise. They had been trying to get me to take a plea agreement. They even at the end asked my attorney, well, if we would offer him time served, would he plead guilty? And he could leave the same day, right? It had gotten to that point.
Wow.
So my attorney has to tell me all this. So she comes
Sure.
back and says, Anthony, I know you're innocent, but I need to tell you what they offer. They want to know, would you be willing to take time served? She said, people who think you're guilty are going to think you're guilty. People who know you're innocent are going to believe in you're innocent. I want to save your life, but I understand. I just have to tell you what they're offering. And they're offering time served. If you plead guilty, that means you can leave today. And my response was, if that's the offer, then they're going to be feeding me in my cell tonight. They're going to kill me or they're going to free me. That's not going to be a compromise. I am not compromising the truth. And that's how it is. So because of that, I stayed an extra 4 more years and 3 months behind steel double doors at the local jail when they overturned my case, because they was trying to break my will and they was trying to get me to take a plea for something I did not do. And I was not going to do that.
So they're clearly trying to break your spirit.
Yes.
And they were completely unsuccessful. I can tell just by, the time we were spending together, and good for you. The first execution date wasn't the only one you were given.
Well, first time, right, it was premature. And the thing about it, I hadn't even exhausted my appeals. They were hoping that my attorneys were not, experienced enough to where they wouldn't file the correct papers and they would execute me on a technicality, right? So, but my attorneys did file the motion for stay. 3 months after I got the first day of execution, they set me another execution date. They were doing them all prematurely. My attorneys had to file a motion to the judge, asking the judge to admonish the DA for setting these premature execution dates, because not only were they harming me, they were harming my mother, my family member, and I hadn't even exhausted my appeals. They were just hoping that we would make a mistake. They would execute me and nobody's going to ever ask about the case. No one would ever know about Anthony Graves being innocent.
Tell us a little bit about the main attorney, Nicole. She was happy teaching journalism and enjoying her job, I'm guessing, and then hears about you and feels compelled.
Yeah.
And, obviously you're in prison. You're not a wealthy man. You're not a billionaire who's going to pay a lot of money.
And never met one down there.
Yeah. How is she through all this?
So, Nicole today is my big sister. We have a great relationship, right? Because when she came in, and here's the thing I admire.
Well, that part warms my heart.
Yeah, but what I admire about Nicole is Nicole did her homework before she came to visit me. And the reason why she did it like that is she said, Anthony, I spent 2 years researching your case before I came to see you because I wanted to know the case. I didn't want to come and sit down and someone were able to manipulate me and tell me things that were not true. She said, so I already did the homework. So when I came to you, I knew you were already innocent. But see, I didn't know that. So when she came to me the first day to visit me, and her and a student sat down, she asked me, says, is there anything you like to tell me? And I said to her, I said, yes, ma'am. I just want you to know that I'm not finna sit out here and try to convince you that I'm innocent. If you do the work, you'll probably find out that I'm innocent. But I have a problem with sitting here trying to tell people that I'm innocent because there's this narrative that all people say that they're innocent, and it's not true. So I don't want to feel like I need to tell you that I'm innocent. I just want you to know who I am and let you know that I've been messed over. Right. And so she told me, which was really great for me. She said, well, I just want you to know, I've already been looking into your case and we already believe in your innocence. That was like a weight off my shoulders because I did not want to try to convince somebody that I was innocent. I didn't need to do that.
Okay, so you are alone on death row. You've got a obviously very skilled, sharp legal mind and young students around her and still years ahead of you. Give our listeners a sense of, the day to day, the week to week. You're like, I can only imagine it must have been like a roller coaster. You get one little bit of good news and then you get shot down again. What was it like?
So living on death row, you come to learn really quick that you can't let your highs be too high or your lows be too low. There's information all the time, right? It's a marathon, not a sprint. Okay, and at the end, you either free or they kill you. Okay, those are the facts. All right, so living on death row, man, it's like every day is the same day pretty much. It's a monotonous experience. You wake up at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning because that's when they feeding you your first breakfast. Breakfast is basically boiled egg, one pint of spoiled milk, so a biscuit and some jelly, and that's your breakfast at 3 in the morning. And then about 9 o'clock you get lunch, right? And lunch would be about a green sandwich with some chips and some. I guess they call it Kool-Aid, but you can't even drink it because it's so strong. It cleans your hot pot out and stuff like that. So it's not even good for your insides, right? And then by 3 o'clock in the evening is your last meal, your dinner. And it can be anything from a chicken patty to, but it's never no good meals. I don't want to paint a picture that you're eating really good. No, if you don't have family members or support from the outside that'll send you money so that you can buy a commissary, because it's a business down there, just like anything else, and they're making money. And if you don't have someone who can support you in that way, then you just at the mercy of the state, and the state don't really care about people they're trying to kill. Okay, so every day was that type of day, and then you would have chaos where officers were gassing inmates who was refusing to reg or who was already losing their minds and not following any rules. Or, sometimes there's an execution day going on and the guy don't want to come out of his cell to be executed. So they have to put on their gear and they go in and beat him and bring him out so that they can strap him to the gurney and take him off and kill him. Those were my activities every day for 6,640 days that I lived.
And you are absolutely right. That is something that a movie, a TV show can't give you a full picture of.
No.
And you're living it. So as you say, you try not to let the highs be too high and the lows too low. So you're trying to keep an even keel, even sense of mind. When your lawyers were successful, were you in the courtroom that day? Did they come back and they tell you? How did you find out?
Wow, man. Wow. So how I found out is October 27th, 2010. Now, I'd already been back in the county jail because my case had been overturned by the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeal, right? One of the most conservative courts, the most conservative court in our nation, gave me a 3-0 vote citing egregious prosecutorial misconduct, overturned my conviction. So now they take me back to the jail because the local prosecutor decided that they're going to retry the case. It didn't matter to them. But that was just smoke. They was trying to get me to plead. So they take me back. I spent 4 more years and 3 months, as I said. So this day, October 27th, the officer came to my cell and now understand I'm still in solitary confinement. I've been in solitary confinement 16 of the 18 and a half years that I was there, right? Still trying to break my will to live. But the officer come to me that day. He raised up the flap and looks inside my cell and he tell me, hey, put your shirt on, come go with me. And I'm asking him, where are we going, right? Because at this time it's time for them to feed dinner. and I'm hungry. So I'm like, hey, man, where we going? He said, just put your shirt on, come go. So I put my shirt on. He opened up the steel doors. And now he and I, we're going to walk down the hall. So I'm asking him, I say, hey, man, where we going? He said, just walk with me. And man, at this time, I've been in jail long enough to know my rights, Gideon versus Wainwright, that you have a right to an attorney. So I started telling him, hey, man, I can't go nowhere with you without my attorney, right? So because I noticed that we wasn't going into the attorney booth, we was going straight down the hall. And I'm getting scared because it's been noted that, here it is. I've exposed them for these lies. And now they talk about me walking up here with this officer. Now he's going to make it look like I'm trying to escape. They're going to kill me and nobody's going to ask the question. Right. So I'm getting scared. So
I'm with you. I'd be shaking.
So by this time we get to the front, he opens up this door and I see my attorneys. So, okay, good. So I exhale, I walk into the room and I see my attorney, Nicole, along with another attorney of mine, Jimmy Phillips Jr. Nicole, when I walk in, she stands up and I can tell that she's trying to bat back her tears. I can see she's crying, right? But in my mind, that's just more bad news, but I don't care. They're going to free me or they're going to kill me. It's not going to be a compromise, right? That's just, my mind is made up, right? I'm going to stand for something. And so Nicole looks at me and she said, Anthony, you remember when you told me that God was good? And I said, yeah, but in my mind, like, where you going with this? Because I'm hungry. Where's the I don't know what's happening. And then she looks, she said, well, I want you to know that God is good, Anthony, because the state just dismissed all the charges against you. And they didn't dismiss the charges because witnesses have died, or they didn't dismiss the charges because evidence have got lost. They dismissed the charges because they believe in your innocence. And I asked,
they were joyful tears.
I said, yeah. So I said, what did you say? Because that just went over my head. I had a shield and a sword in my hand. I wasn't ready for that news. And she said, yeah, it's over with, man. Put these clothes on and let's get out. And by this time, I've been in a building for 18 and a half years. I don't even know my side. Okay. So by this time, the officer comes in who had escorted me down the hall. He said, Mr. Gray, would you like to go get your property? Because he had already knew, but he didn't tell me. I said, yeah, let me go get my property. But it wasn't property that I wanted to get. I didn't know what to do. I was so discombobulated because for 6,640 days, I've had this dream of waking up and being at home only to be waking up inside of a cage. And now here it is. It seems so real to me that if it's not as real, how am I going to get back from this? Because this seems so real. So by the time me and the officer started walking down the hallway, it just dawned on me, man, this is over with. It's over with. So by the time we get to the cell, he said, well, what do you want out of your cell? I said, man, I don't want nothing. Let's just go before y'all change y'all. He said, no, man, just get what you want. I said, well, just let me get my photos and my legal stuff and y'all can have everything else, right? I'm on the go. And just like that, man, October 27, 2010. Wow. I went in jail when I was a week from my 27th birthday. And on this day, I'm walking out of here 45 years old.
45 years old. 30s. You obviously don't have a career. There was an award, I understand. Was it the state acknowledging you were wrongfully accused, or did you have to sue the state?
No. The state acknowledged me being wrongfully convicted, and they acknowledged my innocence, and they compensated me.
Okay.
What do I call it?
I can't imagine. I don't.
They gave me
money's nice, but it doesn't replace what you live through.
No, I took that money and I invested it into my nonprofit to try to help other people, man. So
good for you.
Yeah, that's what I do. It's not about riches, it's about legacy.
And you are not alone. Let's talk about that for a few minutes, because I don't want people to believe, oh, this is just so random. This could never happen. It was 1 in a million. It's not 1 out of a million.
No.
Is that right?
No, it's not.
Tell us more about that.
No, it's not 1 in a million. We have, I forgot how many states in our nation that believe in the death penalty, that supports the death penalty, that practice the death penalty. Okay, if you believe in the death penalty and all of that, that's fine. I have no argument with that. I have no argument at all about anybody's belief in the death penalty. Do not believe in the death penalty. That is between you and your God. I have no problem with that, because I don't want someone to tell me how to feel if someone does something to my loved one. So I have no problem with you for or against the death penalty. But what I do know is that I was death row exoneree number 138 back in 2010. That means that 137 men before me walked off our nation's death row innocent. And now we're up to about 190 since I've been out. So now we know for a fact that we have sentenced at least 190 men to death on our nation's death row. Are we willing to have that much collateral damage just to keep a death penalty that we can't control. Because reason why I say we can't control it, some men are finding themselves on death row for crimes they did not commit, meaning we no longer can control it. Are we okay with murdering innocent people just to say we have the death penalty? Because we know 190 people have walked off our nation's death row innocent. So we have to wrestle with that. Not do you believe in the death penalty, but does the death penalty work? We know it doesn't work all the time. What are we willing to do about it?
Well, there's one thing that we do, and we encourage victims to speak up. And what you have done, what you continue to do, what I know you are going to wake up tomorrow and do again is speak up. And for that, it is just amazing that your mindset has brought you probably, I would say it's almost the flip side of how you had to rationalize being on death row, where you don't let the highs get too high and the lows get too low. You have lived the lowest that I could imagine. And you have elevated that now to incredible heights, doing things that people can't imagine. You testified before Congress, is that right? And
yes.
You wrote a book, and you're speaking out. You formed a nonprofit. You're doing all these amazing things because of your beliefs, and that's just absolutely incredible.
Yes, it's at the end of the day, I'm gonna say also it's selfishness. I'm taking back my life.
You've taken back your life. Now, I have a very simple question. You mentioned that beautiful day in October where there's your tearful attorney, Nicole. You just imagine the emotion going through her mind, and you were supposed to get food.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know. So I got to ask, what's your favorite meal?
Oh, man. My favorite meal is, keep it simple, steak and potatoes.
Steak and potatoes. Okay. Well, if you ever find yourself in Washington, D.C., or if I ever find my way in Texas, we're going out for the best steak and potatoes we can find.
I'll be in D.C. on the 21st of this month. The 21st
this month?
Yes, I'm coming.
I got a couple places in mind. Let's do it, man. We're gonna do it.
I'll be over here.
We're gonna eat well and continue this story because I'm just fascinated. I'm just motivated by your spirit. I just can't say enough good things about you. For our listeners out there, do me a favor in the comments section. Tell us your thoughts about Anthony's spirit, because I'm just amazed. I love to read those comments. Love to read it. Anthony Grace, thank you. We got a date on the 21st. See you in Washington.
Yes, sir.
And for those of you out there, don't forget to click like and subscribe, and join us again next week on True Crime Prevention.